Good morning, welcome back, Happy New Year. What did I miss since we last posted? Well folks, it's Monday the 4th of January 2021 and it's time for Mythbusters, episode 20. Many things are said about Scotland, independence, the Union, the European Union, etc. And in these videos I try to bust the myths that many people believe. This week's myth is that Brexit is going to save our fishing industry. Now, many fishermen, people in related industries and communities have been eagerly anticipating Brexit. Then, the end of the transition period is a chance to revive their industries. Well, that has now passed. But now that the draft EU-UK trade deal is no longer draft because it's been signed, supported in Parliament, and has actually gained royal assent, it's clear that our fishermen's futures, as expected, have been sacrificed on the altar of the wider UK-EU trade deal. It's well known that the fishing industry has been in decline for a long time. There are myriad complex reasons for this, but one of the perceived reasons was the EU Common Fisheries Policy, or CFP. Now, this led to overwhelming support for Brexit in the fishing industry and the communities that are built on the back of them. Now, I've already shot a video last year to debunk the CFP is solely responsible for all the fishing industry's ills theory. But now that the draft deal has been delivered, I can now debunk the theory that the Tory version of Brexit is going to save the fishing industry. First, the headlines. Quota compromise. Reducing EU catches in the UK 200 mile zone by 25% over 5.5 years is, on the face of it, balanced enough. But looking past the headline and into the small print reveals that many species that are very important to UK fishermen actually have a reduced allocation under this deal. And for those UK fishermen who currently depend on paper-free, low regulation, overnight sales of shellfish and crustaceans to the continent, which is about 30% of our seafood sector, this deal is only partial relief at best. Though the sector will admittedly avoid high tariffs that would have followed no deal, they will still be faced with cumbersome catch certificates, health checks and customs checks now that the UK is leaving the seamless European single market. We were told fisheries would be a big Brexit winner, but it won't. Not in this deal. The UK industry will certainly lose more from Brexit, i.e. no more frictionless access to the UK market, than it gains, i.e. derisory incremental extra quotas over the next 5 years. First, let's look at the length of the deal. 5.5 years of cuts in EU quotas versus increases in UK quotas. They're all laid out in the annexes to the main treaty. But crucially, the last column says 2026 onwards. In other words, the presumption is there will be no further cuts in EU quotas after that date. In the main fisheries part of the agreement, there is indeed talk of annual negotiations, of sharing fish, something the UK government had always insisted upon. But the opaque text can be read in 2 or maybe more different ways. The agreement says that the annual consultations should normally result in each party granting the quotas shown in the annexes. In other words, there's a presumption of enduring shares after the 25% cut in 2026. And that's something the EU had always insisted upon. But what happens if one side refuses or reduces access after June 2026? Compensatory measures can be imposed, commensurate to the economic and societal impact of the change. A joint tribunal will sit if necessary. The measures can include tariffs and tit-for-tat closures. So Boris Johnson's claim on Christmas Eve that the UK will be free to catch and eat much fish as it likes from UK waters after 2026 is unlikely to ever become true. Sure, we could close our waters, but we would inevitably pay a heavy price for doing so in tariffs on fish and other exports to the European Union. Now that price wouldn't be borne by the government, and it would most likely be borne by the UK seafood industry and other industries which rely heavily on exports to the European Union. The quota uplifts have been looked at by many fishing organisations and Brexit supporting groups. A former UKIP MEP assessed it in actual practical terms as a 2.32% uplift overall. Now, how would that look on the side of a campaign bus? We were always told that fisheries would be negotiated separately and access to our waters would not be tied to a larger trade deal. But the fisheries agreement is part of the main trade deal, meaning if we enter a dispute with the European Union on fisheries, we enter into a dispute on the whole UK-EU trade deal. In other words, if we take more fish after 2026, we might have nowhere to sell that extra fish, and we threaten the prosperity of other industries and their ability to trade with the European Union. This deal recognises, in effect, what some people have been saying for years, that like it or not, the UK fishing industry is tangled up with Europe, whether we are in the European Union or not. All UK industries, not just the fishing industry, will likely have to pay a high price in EU import tariffs if access to our waters is withdrawn after 2026 or as a result of failed negotiations before that date. No tariffs is great, but that's only a small issue compared with the movement of goods. Exporting fresh fish with the border checks, catch certificates and health certificates, and the time to get those in place are all going to reduce the freshness. It's the friction in the border that's the biggest issue, not the tariffs. Free flow and just-in-time import-export is our biggest selling point, and we're just not ready for it. Far from giving us sovereign control of our waters and access to them, the UK government have surrendered to Europe. A debatable quota increase of circa 25% over 5.5 years, with the UK share of some key stocks actually going down over the adjustment period, followed by enduring access rights thereafter. Now, obviously, I'm an independence supporter, so you could be forgiven for thinking that I may be biased in thinking that this Tory negotiated deal falls short of expectations. So if you don't believe me and my take, try the take of the people most directly affected. Scottish fishermen. The day before the deal was revealed, responding to rumours in the media, the Scottish Fishermen's Federation posted this on their Facebook page. Amid all the rumours and speculation, we have been clear from the outset that the industry only seeks the same sorts of arrangements that the EU has with other coastal states. Full control of access to our waters, fairer quota shares based on zonal attachment, and annual negotiations on access and fishing opportunities. No more and no less than the EU has with others. If any of these offers are accurate, then in terms of percentages and length of transition period, they are utterly derisory and totally unacceptable to the Scottish fishing fleet. Repatriating only 35% of the EU's landings to the UK, phased in over a period of several years, would be a terrible deal for the industry. And you cannot have sovereign control over your fishing waters with one hand tied behind your back. The UK would be a coastal state in name only. This is not what we were promised, and only last week the Prime Minister made the same point at PMQs. If this is indeed what is on the table, then the Prime Minister and his government will have completely betrayed the promises they have made repeatedly, in public and in private, to our industry. Those are strong words, folks. So you can only imagine the disappointment for Elspeth MacDonald, Chief Executive of the Scottish Fishermen's Federation, the very next day when she saw the full and almost unbelievably worse details of the fisheries agreement reached between the UK and the European Union. The key points from her response are below. This deal falls very far short of the commitments and promises that were made to the fishing industry by those at the highest level of government. It does not restore UK sovereign control over fisheries and does not permit us to determine who can catch what, where and when in our own waters. The adjustment to UK shares of fish are modest at best, and in some cases will leave us with very real practical fisheries management problems. A fundamental error was made by the government, not securing sufficient quota uplift in some key stocks to take account of international swaps, which will no longer be possible in the same way. Anyone involved in fisheries would know this gap had to be bridged for vessels in the whitefish fleet. We expect government to come forward with solutions to the problem they have created. The UK is not receiving a 25% uplift in quotas, but instead will gain 25% of the value of what was the EU's share in 2019. This does not equate to a 25% uplift in quota. We are now a coastal state with one hand tied behind our back, and the industry's task in the months and years ahead is to right the wrongs of this deal. Now, this view isn't exclusive to the Scottish Fishermen's Federation. Mike Park, Chief Executive of the Scottish Whitefish Producers Association, described the deal as a betrayal by the UK government on the Scottish industry. While Barry Dias, Chief Executive of the National Federation of Fishermen's Organisations, said there was frustration and anger as Boris Johnson was willing to sacrifice fishing and warned that the industry will be extremely disappointed. And finally, a word from the sharp end. A pro-Brexit fisherman who was one of the forces behind the Fishing for Leave campaign has claimed the Brexit deal is so bad that remaining in the EU would be a better option. Writing for Conservative Women, John Ashworth from Fishing for Leave commented on the impact of the deal on the industry. He wrote, "I keep hoping I will wake up from a bad dream and find that the contents are not true. Alas, they are so bad that there is very little gain in some places, in others none. One would think the document is a preparation to rejoin the EU. It has certainly handed a gift to the SNP in their quest for independence. One could even say we would be better off staying in." Now, the pro-Brexit campaigner claimed that the EU had become the leading player in the agreement and the document had little to do with sovereignty. In summary, folks, once again, the Johnson-led UK government has overpromised and underdelivered. Many are rightfully disappointed. If this is the best outcome we can expect from Boris Johnson and the Conservatives representing us, if you believed that Brexit and the Conservatives would save the UK fishing industry, you have been sold a big basket of red herrings. What has become clearer than ever is that the only way to get the best deal on fishing, and indeed all of the rest of Scotland's national priorities, is for us as a nation to represent ourselves in the world directly as an independent country. The overall EU trade deal, which I'll cover next week, is pretty much exactly the same deal as Theresa May had delivered, which led to Johnson resigning as our Foreign Secretary, her government's collapse and his eventual ascent to power. Now, back in 2018, Douglas Ross MP said of the previous Theresa May attempt at this deal, it would be easier to get someone to drink a pint of cold sick than to try to sell this as a success. Now, I don't know what has changed between now and then for him to say the worse 2020 version that our fishing communities will be far better off out with the hated common fisheries policy. If any fishermen out there want to fill up a pint glass with puke for him, run it up to Forrest and film him drinking it, I'd be most appreciative. It's fair to say that fishermen have been resistant to Scottish independence and the SNP for obvious reasons for the past wee while. But if you are one of those angry fishermen, instead of directing your anger at us, and people like me and my party, I suggest you direct it at the people who sold you these lies. And maybe have a wee word with yourself for believing them in the first place. It's often said that the enemy of your enemy is your friend. If you're a fisherman and you perceived the European Union as your enemy, and you saw the Tories as their enemy, then it was an easy conclusion to come to that they would be your friend. Well, look how that turned out. Now, my party have often been attacked by the fishermen's communities and organisations for our independence and pro-EU stance, but at least we've always been honest with you. If you're a fisherman watching this, we can still help you, but only if you give us the power to do so. You all may have missed it, but even when you were virulently opposed to us, we were there fighting for you. We still are. In the meantime, the UK government, led by Boris Johnson's Conservatives, have lied to you. Your power at the ballot box has been stolen from you, and Her Majesty the Queen signed off on it. Only the courts are at your disposal now. I suggest you get all these fishing organisations together, hire a shit-hot team of lawyers and an equally shit-hot QC, and sue the fucking lot of them. Good luck. Folks, thanks for watching. Please feel free to share this video with anyone you like, particularly fishermen and undecided voters. DaviePHD.